The place where we find meaning and the source of our meaning is not about success, certainty, or knowing what's coming. It's not about creature comforts like having money and a home and a beautiful car or anything related to those kinds of experiences that are basic needs. The experience that brings us the most meaning, and this is all through time, and this is all throughout the research, consistently pointing to acting in a way that is consistent with what you care about, even when it feels difficult. Behaving in ways that feel meaningful and purposeful to you based on what's most important to you. I want to talk today about meaning and purpose and how to engage in actions that give us a feeling of satisfaction. And there's quite a few reasons why this has been coming up for me lately, and I think you'll be able to relate to a lot of these. The idea that we can have meaning show up, just drop in on our doorstep, it's just not how it works. The thing that gives us the most satisfaction is not related to the stuff we buy or what we're seeing on Instagram. It's not related to how much money we earn. It's not related to how well we can predict the future. And when things feel uncertain all around the globe, being able to predict feels really good. And as human beings, we certainly like to be able to predict what's going to happen. However, the research keeps pointing at this one thing. And it's not so hard to do once you have a grasp of what it really means. When our actions are in alignment with what's most important to us, we feel good. And it doesn't mean that circumstances around us get good or better even, but it means that we find our behavior to be in alignment with what's most important to us. No matter the circumstances, we will continue to behave in a way that is in alignment with what truly matters. Here are some examples of when our behavior lines up with what's most important to us. And if you're a parent and you spend a lot of time with your kids, those are lined up. If you, when you're spending time with them, you behave in a way that feels good to you. You're patient, you're kind, you give them guidance, you give them safety, structure, you feed them, you put them to bed on time, you do the things that they need that are important for them, and you're willing to let go of other things that you might enjoy or you might have preferred to do, yet you're willing to make those sacrifices because you care about your kids. And when that happens, and we align all of that, parenting is very satisfying. If you are at a job that you're best suited for, right? Like you're engaged in some kind of work pursuit that is interesting to you, and you feel aligned with that company's mission. You feel that what you bring to the table is valued, and how you show up at work feels good to you. You're perhaps kind to your colleagues, and you're maybe a good salesperson, or you're a patient and effective teacher. Whatever it is, you show up in a way that feels good and is in alignment with how you think you want to be showing up. This works in relationships as well. If we're in relationship with someone and they treat us in a way we don't like, we actually feel way better if we behave in a way that we like for ourselves. It doesn't mean we're demanding they treat us in a certain way, but it means that we show up in a way that feels good to us, and we can feel proud of our behavior no matter what's going on around us. So, where are you feeling in alignment with your values and what's most important to you? So you can ask yourself a couple different questions to figure out where it's a good fit for you. Have you considered some of the possibilities related to work, relationship, and friendship, community, your service in the world, parenting, and also engaged in education, personal development, ongoing health, relationships that are kind of on the periphery, and relationships that are even really far away, like someone you run into at the grocery store. Consider all of those and then see where you're acting in a way that feels good to you. And values are all about how you behave. They are not about how other people treat us. They are how we behave. And if you find that you're feeling a little short in some areas where you might feel defensive, you might lash out at someone, you might get frustrated or want to cut them off, you may feel tempted to do something that's against the rules at your work, for example. You might find that other people are stealing Post-it notes and you think, oh, you should put some in your bag too. And when you do, it doesn't feel right. And so you put them back and you end up in a situation where you do feel good. You feel much more aligned. The parks where I live in San Francisco have a sign that say, please leave the flowers and please don't pick up the vegetation. And it can be really tempting. And especially children want to pick the flowers, especially the poppies when they come in bloom. And it becomes a lesson. I overhear parents talking to their kids, well, if everyone picked a flower, then there would be no flowers for everyone to enjoy. And it's teaching children to delay gratification, to really engage with the community, to know that they don't need to take from the community if it takes from others. These are all really powerful examples of how we can get in alignment. And we feel sympathy towards people in the public eye when they do feel aligned and their behavior is consistent with what they said it would be. If a politician continues to work toward something that they said they would, we understand that they are in alignment. When we see a celebrity who is trying to look innocent and yet they're getting in all kinds of legal problems, we sense this friction where their inner alignment is not matching the outer alignment. And we have a lot less sympathy for people who are in that boat. Meaning and motivation has come up a lot for me lately. And I often struggle at the end of writing a book or meeting a deadline for a journal article. And I start to doubt myself and I get all kinds of terrible thoughts about how what I'm writing makes no sense. And I know at this point, after 30 some years of writing for publication, that this is just part of my process. So it hardly bothers me at all anymore. Yet it creeps up in really funny ways. And I think I've mastered it on the last book, and then it shows up in a different way. And so I wanted to share some of the strategies that have been successful for me and also explain the science behind it and what the research is truly showing us about how we can take action on what's important to us and stop listening to these pesky thoughts. I face two main challenges when I'm trying to accomplish something that is deeply meaningful to me. It feels personally important that I continue to write and publish about the benefits of creativity and the art process. And this book that I'm working on feels especially meaningful because it's not an academic book. It's written for you as the listener, for anyone who wants to figure out how to use art for their health, their wellness, and just to feel better, to figure out how to have a creative practice. And so this feels much more, I think, easy to access, much less heady and academic. So it's taken on, a special importance for me. So here's the two things that I have been doing, and I know I've been doing them in working on other books. So here's the first one, procrastination. I have a very clean house right now because I have been procrastinating. I have taken my dog on so many extra walks because I have been procrastinating. I have been doing all kinds of really great things that I enjoy, knitting and reading, just sort of like a little more of them. I've also paced around my house, which isn't very helpful, but it's part of my procrastination. I look through magazines. I will make collages. I will pull out my art supplies. I will suddenly decide that my bookshelf needs rearranging. These are my procrastination strategies. And there's nothing wrong with it. Nothing's gone wrong with me if I'm engaging in a little bit of procrastination. It matters that I have time to think about what I'm writing, reflect on it. It's really helpful to go for walks. It's helpful to knit and have creative process. And at some point, I recognize that it's no longer helpful. I'm just consuming other enjoyable things and avoiding writing. And for almost the whole month of March, I was engaged in all of these procrastination behaviors. And it felt especially difficult because I knew I was doing it and I knew it was not what I wanted to do. Here's the second thing that really gets in my way is listening to my thoughts. So my negative thoughts took on a different twist this time. They were, why are you procrastinating? What's wrong? And I know nothing's wrong with procrastinating. It just gave me extra space in my head to judge myself about doing it. So I imagine a lot of people can relate to procrastination. The second part, though, of listening to your thoughts, you might have some questions about because it's a little bit counterintuitive when I say you have to stop listening to your thoughts as if they were facts. They are not commands. They are not instructions. They are a biological process of one neuron firing across another to another. It's leaping over the synapse, connecting with another neuron, and then spreading out in this predictable pattern over and over, neuron to neuron. It is like your heart beating. It is like your blood pumping. It is your brain thinking. And if I can relate to my thoughts for what they are, just thoughts, not facts, only then can I take a step back and have a little bit of ease from this constant chattering that goes on in our brain. Now, our brains are designed to think. Thank goodness. They're helpful sometimes. They are in an ongoing chatterbox kind of way, filling our mind or filling our awareness with words. And words are symbols. They reflect something. If I'm thinking about my paint set and my watercolor paper, I am not painting, I am thinking about painting. And there's a huge difference. So I can see my paint colors over there, but I'm not presently painting. And if you imagine something you're thinking about, you can start to recognize that you're only thinking, you're not doing it. You're only thinking about it. Now, I might look over and say, oh, that's my favorite shade of red. And that's true. It is my preference, that shade of red. But the thinking is not a fact. It's not true. It's not the red. It's just a thought of enjoyment about that shade of red. If I think something nice about my best friend, she's not here. So all that's happening is I'm having thoughts about her, which give me pleasure. I enjoy thinking about her and what she's working on and the jewelry that she's designing and the trips that she's taking. It's great, but it's not a fact. She might be going on a trip, but what's happening in my mind is simply thinking about her. It took me quite a while to figure out that thoughts are not true and they don't have to be listened to. Here's a great example of when we don't want to listen to our thoughts. I read that most people have really kind of disturbing thoughts, especially when they're driving. Drive off the bridge, crash into the car in front of them, etc. And we have these thoughts that pass through our mind, sometimes anxious thoughts. Sometimes they are just intruding upon us and we don't know where they came from. That we don't feel worried we would do it. They just pop into our mind. And it's not abnormal to have peculiar thoughts like this pop into our mind. And most of the time, we don't do it. We don't take action on these uncomfortable, scary, hurtful thoughts. So most of the time, nothing's happening. We're not responding to those thoughts at all. And in fact, they might just go through our awareness so quickly. We have them and then we move on. We decide not to entertain those thoughts. If you've ever had something that you felt like so interested in, a person, a purse, your dog, you get a new puppy and you're so interested and you think about it and you read about it. And when you're not with your puppy, you miss your puppy. If you're not with your new partner, you miss them. You're just like so engaged. And then later on, you're not. So your dog gets older, you're used to the routine. The dog has their favorite treats, so you don't have to like search constantly for what would my dog enjoy. And your mind settles down and it can go back to thinking about lots and lots of other things. You go into a long-term relationship with a partner and you realize you don't have to think about them all the time. Or you break up with that partner and you don't think about them at all anymore. So our brains can start to filter out what is not so important. But what happens that keeps us in a struggle is the predictable, habitual patterns of thoughts. And they cause us so much pain. We really end up in a spot where our thoughts are bothering us. And what we're doing is responding to our thoughts instead of responding to the reality in front of us. So back to my writing, I was procrastinating and I was thinking about procrastinating. And I wasn't even thinking about my book. I was just thinking about how I was procrastinating. I was really spending a lot of time on social media, just like scrolling, shopping. I wasn't buying anything. I was just scrolling and scrolling. And these are pretty damaging kind of procrastination. And we know there's real brain consequence to staring at our phone for a really long period of time or engaging in social media. In the beginning, we used to think it was, bad for kids and teenagers. And now the research is really clear. It's bad for all of us. So then I was judging myself, oh, Amy, you know this research and yet you're just sitting here scrolling. And I wouldn't even want to look at how long I'd been on my social media. Instead of responding to my value of working on my book, I was responding to my thoughts, which were going nowhere. Thinking about my procrastination wasn't going to help me. Judging myself for procrastinating wasn't really true. I was just having a fight with myself and my brain. And it went on for quite a while before I remembered, oh, Amy, you're responding to yourself. You're navel gazing, thinking about your thoughts instead of doing the thing that feels really important right now. So I took 5 days off of social media. I didn't look at any shopping sites. I didn't look at any apps on my phone except for my phone and my text and my music. And about a month ago, I went to Los Angeles with my family for a college road trip. We visited some more colleges, and I took 5 days off of work and 5 days away from applications. And it was really quite the habit that I wanted to look at my phone, and yet when I didn't, I started getting the satisfaction back. I really ended up feeling so much better after about 2 days of no social media. Those 5 days gave my mind the opportunity to settle down. And I was surprised how much better I felt after that. So with those 5 days of having a free space in my brain and also the time away from phone, I was able to be fully present with my family. We had a really great time looking at schools. I didn't pick up my phone at all, and I was fully present. And my kid and I had a hilarious time, joking and laughing on all the tours. We had a great time. When we met back up with my husband, it was his birthday, and I felt fully present. We walked around. We had dinner at a great restaurant in Silver Lake that I feel like I was present for in a way that I hadn't been present. And I never put my phone out at a restaurant. Never, never, never. But after those few days of no apps, I could feel qualitatively different, present in what was happening. I remember a lot about the meal that I might have forgotten if I had been, 5 days usual looking at my phone. So after that experience, I felt a lot better and I could relate to my thoughts with a lot more ease, and I got back to writing. So if you're struggling with procrastination or with believing stuff that you think to be facts, then maybe a break from social media or technology in general would serve you in a really powerful way. 5 days felt like a long time, but it was not at all. It was actually a perfect amount of time to step away. I want to give you some more examples about what it means in the research to relate to your thoughts as thoughts and how you can start to apply that in a more practical way. So I was having the thought, oh, Amy, you're procrastinating again. Why are you doing this? What's wrong? You have a really looming quite soon kind of deadline happening. You're procrastinating. You're not doing a good job, etc. So those were thoughts. They were not facts. Now, it's true I have a looming deadline. However, thinking about that deadline is not a fact. It's just the biological process of thinking about it. The only fact in that spew of chatter out of my brain was that there is a deadline coming. But even thinking about that deadline has nothing to do with the deadline. It's just me thinking thoughts and judging myself for not working fast enough or for feeling behind. And if you've been here on the podcast for a while, you can probably recognize that flavor of thought as time anxiety. We start saying things about time. I'm late. Oh no, I have to leave soon. Why are they late? Why does this take so long? This is wasting my time. All of that is just time anxiety. It's you thinking thoughts that create tension in your mind and your body. And time is passing independent of what you think about it. So I hope these two examples help you understand a little bit more that we're dealing with a biological process, not facts. And when I could shift away from thinking about procrastination to thinking about the book, to then sitting down and getting back to my edits, then I felt better. So remember what I said in the beginning of this episode, that we feel most satisfied with meaning and purpose when we are aligned with the behavior matching what feels most meaningful to us. I want to tell you one more thing that I do to deal with my own procrastination. I have now built in space for procrastination. I know that before I sit down to write, I will circle a little bit. I'll make a cup of coffee. I'll empty the dishwasher. I'll start to do little tasks that don't take very long, but I know that's my warm-up, so I've just made space for it. I've cleared a lot off my schedule for this semester. I'm not teaching, I'm just supervising research. I have let go of a few work obligations and am focused on seeing my clients, seeing my coaching clients, the podcast, and the book. And those streamlined workflows help me have space for procrastination. Because I know if I fill out my schedule to the max, everything is packed in, I know there simply will not be a space for me to circle around before I write, and I'll just end up circling and not writing. So one of the most important things you can do for yourself is to create space in your schedule. And we need space in our schedule because life happens. And when life happens and we've got a jam-packed schedule, it often feels like a crisis. More time anxiety. I don't have time for this, or I have to cancel a bunch of things to deal with something that's come up. You can recognize it a lot when we have a health concern. If we get sick and we need to stay home and recover, we have to kind of clear our schedule. It's like that with other things in life as well. When our schedule is jam-packed and there's a health emergency or a friend needs support or car needs a tune-up, whatever it is, it will feel so urgent and so difficult and so stressful. So for the same reason that we benefit by having lots of space in our schedule, our ability to get our meaningful tasks done also benefits by having this space. And it gives us time to procrastinate or to reflect, to do our Don Draper moments where we sit and think about the project. And as we wrap this up, I want to give you a little bit of the research behind what I'm talking about. Diffusion is when we're able to step back and observe our thoughts as just thoughts. So that's thought diffusion. We are no longer fused with an idea that it's true. We're able to see multiple perspectives and then persist in our behavior or stop doing something. So when I defused from my thoughts about procrastination, I recognized, oh, I'm having thoughts about procrastination. And then I could stop procrastinating. If I recognize I'm having thoughts about my, worries about my health, then I can recognize, oh, I'm thinking about my health. And then I can decide, do I want to keep doing what I'm doing or do I want to change something? And it's in those moments of diffusion when we can get clear and really capture and kind of harness some motivation because it's linked to what's important and what truly matters to us. So we want to avoid thought fusion. That's where we're chattering along in our brain or repeating the same thoughts over and over or believing that our thoughts are facts or commandments that we have to follow. And we want to move towards thought diffusion, where we recognize that there's many things happening all at once. It's whatever we're doing, whatever we're thinking, however our body feels. There's so much happening in any given moment. And a thought is just like our heart beating. It's not really helpful to believe those thoughts. I always get a little bit of pushback on how do I know the difference between a fact and a thought. If you're thinking it, it's a thought. It is not a fact. Polar bears exist. I'm thinking of one, but they're not here in my office. It's a thought. Polar bears exist is a fact. You can look at pictures online. You can even see one in person. But thinking about them is not a fact. I hope that helps you kind of clarify those two things. So I've been back to writing, seat in chair, working on my editing. And I sent about the first third of my book to my editor. I'm really excited. It looks good, and she'll work her magic to format everything. She will give me some fabulous suggestions that make it truly more rich and more meaningful. AI could never, ever, ever replace my editor, Darcy. It's simply impossible. It's impossible. So I'm finishing up some more edits. I'm adding in the work of about a dozen art therapists who have contributed to this book. And it's been an amazing process. After that 5-day detox from my phone, shifting back into aligning my values with my behaviors. And I feel so much better. So all of that research about feeling good, feeling satisfied, when our inside values match our behavior, it's true. It really is, no matter the circumstances. When we do what we believe is most important, we feel good. And this applies to small things like showing up for yourself. For me, it's sitting down to write. It's taking the time to communicate with my representatives about what I think is important for them to focus on in the government right now. It is all the ways that I try to show up for the people in my life. And so it's small things, it's large things, it's almost always small things though. So now that you know all of this about meaning and aligning your actions with your values to create more satisfaction, what will you create? Thank you so much for joining me here today. It really means so much when I hear from listeners to know what lands. And I love hearing from you. So thank you, everyone who's written me. And I want to say that I believe we can have more meaning and purpose in our life through these tiny actions, choosing one thing for a day and seeing how it goes. And we start to experiment, and then we begin to see how to defuse from our thoughts. So please don't judge yourself as you're growing and changing and dealing with whatever circumstances are around you. I want to thank you for being part of this creative process. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I look forward to speaking with you in the next episode.